What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Scouting Combine on the Five Reasons Sports Network. This is the debut show on the Five Reasons Sports Network, and I'm your host, Hussam Patel. And today I'm joined by our special guest, University of Tennessee-Chattanooga offensive lineman Cole Strange. Cole, how you doing today, my guy?
I'm doing good, man. Thank you for having me. I
Of course,
appreciate it.
man. Thank you so much for being here. I know it's been really busy. You just got done with the NFL Combine. You're training for the NFL Draft. What's this experience been like so far?
You know, it's kind of been taking it one step at a time. I guess it's kind of been something where I've just looked at it as training just like any other year, almost like a regular off season.
Right.
Um, but whenever you step back and look at it, it's incredible. It's like I'm training for the NFL draft. So it's been an incredible journey.
Has this been like a dream come true for you?
I think it's been the prelude to a dream come true because until I'm actually on a team, I guess I can't say the dreams come true.
Of course, man. So let's get right into the nitty gritty. I know last season, it was a COVID shortened season, and a lot of people used their 6 year COVID eligibility due to those COVID exceptions. So I'm just curious to know, why did you do that, and what did you learn throughout the process?
Oh, sorry about that. The connection went wonky there for a second.
Oh, all good, all good. So I'll ask the question again. A lot of people use their 6 year eligibility due to COVID exceptions, and you did too. So a lot of people want to know, why you did that, and what did you learn throughout that process?
Honestly, whenever I did it, it wasn't really much of an option, in my opinion. Um, I at that point in my college career, I hadn't heard a bunch from agents, and I hadn't heard a bunch from teams, or anything. So taking extra year just seemed like I'm just going to keep playing ball. And I had a very short conversation with a coach of mine at the time, and he told me that he thought I should probably play another year. And I didn't feel like he was trying to tell me that so they could keep me. It seemed like he was actually looking out for me. That's what I felt like.
Of course, and throughout your career, you were, I guess, dominant. I would say, to put it a bit shortly. You move really smooth. You cover a lot of ground. You're 6'6", 304, and to regular people, that's big. That's like an NFL offensive lineman type of guy, and people really like those measurements and numbers. So before training for the NFL Combine, what was your training regimen like, and did it have to change when you got accepted to the Combine?
I think my training regimen was, I guess, anyone else who's training for a regular off season. That's kind of what my training regimen was like. And then whenever it was time to train for the combine, it 100% changed. And it was very much specific to the drills that we do at the combine, or that other guys are doing at their pro days.
Right, right. And a lot of the stuff, especially that wave training, for offensive linemen with people like your size, it seems inhumanely impossible to do that. But you've shown on film that you're able to slide back quickly. You cover a lot of ground. You're able to move in that space, and especially after the snap, you're super quick. What are some of those techniques you've learned, and how could you give that to up and coming college linemen now?
Yes, sir. Well, I appreciate you saying all that. I think, honestly, as far as techniques go, I think the most technical aspect of being offensive lineman is pass blocking.
Right.
And I think, with the exception of that, I would teach effort first, technique second. If you could have someone who had no technique but was just going full speed 24/7, you had to slow them down. I feel like that's getting someone to that first, and then just from personal experience, that's kind of the kind of ball player I was, and then kind of still am sometimes. I remember, I mean, it was a daily thing when we were watching film, and my coach was telling me, you need to be more under control. And that was my knock for the longest, is I just was out of control. But it meant that I was going full speed. And in my opinion, it was easier. I know my coaches preferred it because they kind of told us pretty plainly that they prefer to have someone who they need to slow down or who they need to get under control,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to having someone who has good technique and they need to speed them up. And if you have a guy who's just automatically, goes full speed and has great technique, then maybe I should be the one coaching him. Yeah.
Really one with the jokes, man. Really one with the jokes. So you were in the Senior Bowl. What was the experience like for somebody who's been labeled as a small school type of prospect?
The experience went really well for me. I guess I didn't really ever put too much. I didn't really pay any mind to people labeling me as that. I kind of just with the exception that I knew that it was a bigger deal for me than it was for some of the other guys. That was the only thing I think that was different in my mind. I knew that if I played well during that week of practice and at that game, it meant more for me than it meant for someone who was coming from an SEC school or a Big Ten school. But with the exception of that, you're just competing. You're
Right.
just playing ball. That's kind of how I looked at it. It wasn't
You're
anything.
really you're really putting the phrase "it just means more" to reality now after the Senior Bowl, because I've been talking to a lot of coaches and scouts, and you really impressed a lot of people. So you interact with the coaching staff throughout practice week and game. You interact with other scouts and walls, and it is challenging going to a new place and a new system. So like, what were
Mhm.
some of those challenges, and how did you respond to that type of adversity?
So the main challenge, I think, or at least the main thing that I felt like could be a challenge at first, just whenever I first heard it, was that I was going to be playing center all week.
Yep.
Um, but to tell you the truth, I didn't really even think about it that much. Whenever they told us, whenever we got there that first day, we had a meeting with the Jets coaching staff, and then we went in and did our individual position meetings. And I went into the offensive line meeting room, and they had a depth chart, so to speak, but it wasn't technically a real depth chart. But they had me lined up at center, and I thought to myself, you know what? All right, cool. For the briefest moment in time, I thought to myself, I've played 2 games at center, and all I've really done is snap the ball after practice to practice snapping, But that came and went pretty quickly, and I thought, you know what? I'll play it. They can put me at quarterback. I'll toss the ball too, but wouldn't be a good idea. But I thought I was confident. I was
Can you do you have an howitzer of an arm to play quarterback?
like, oh man, I wish I did, but no, I can't. I think if there's a position that I couldn't play, the bottom of the barrel would be quarterback. I'd be more comfortable getting out in coverage before I would be trying to read defenses and throw the ball.
You're telling me you can play the mythical cover 6 that a lot of people don't believe exists?
Yeah, exactly. I'm your guy for that.
Oh man, I'm gonna see you in deep third center field, just hovering around like a free safety, kind of like Jamon Holland does for the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah.
So, you played offensive guard, and you said you had snaps at center. I believe you may have had some at tackle. Correct me if I'm wrong, but which one do you feel comfortable at, and why do you think the versatility playing all 5 positions along the line is super important for a young guy like you?
I would say I feel most comfortable in the interior. I honestly though, I feel pretty comfortable all across the line. I finished the year, the 2021 season. I finished that season at tackle. Our
Yeah.
tackle had torn his pec, and I moved out and finished. I was the last 3 games there, and you know, I at the time it was very similar to whenever I first played center back in 2019. I
Right.
wasn't where I would have preferred to have stayed at guard, but the more reps I took there, and the more I practiced there, and the more games that I played there, I felt better at it. You know, and I felt the same way at center. Like I said, at that first day of the Senior Bowl, I was a little bit thinking, okay, haven't played this, but then I felt good in practice, and as practice went along, I felt better after each day, and then during the game, I felt even better than I did in practice, and I feel the same as tackle. I know I get labeled as an interior guy, and I'm okay with that because I think that's probably the truth. But Yeah, I think it's just a matter of reps, and I'd be comfortable anywhere. And I think that, or my bad, what were you gonna say?
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that as far as the importance of playing multiple positions for the NFL, I think it's kind of different than it is in college because they only have so many people that they can travel. You know, it's 52, isn't it? Or I mean, and even
53.
then, huh?
53.
53? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so if you have a guy who can play center and both guards, and a guy who can play either tackle, then you don't need a guy who is a backup center, a backup guard, and a backup tackle. You know, you go from having to travel 7 guys instead of 8, and so then that frees up another position. You know, at least that's what it has been explained to me, is having that versatility is a positive for a team in that way.
It is certainly important. So I think we're gonna get to the fun part of the segment of the podcast. What was your favorite play called in college, and why did you like it so much?
Favorite play call? I think that probably the one that we ran the most is the one that I guess I kind of became the biggest fan of, was just Bronco, which was our outside zone to the left. Denver was to the right, Bronco was to the left. We'd have tags off that, Bronco search or Bronco seal, but it was the outside zone to the left, and we just ran it so often, like I just knew, and it's kind of something that came back to bite me on the butt whenever I went to the Senior Bowl. I had to kind of explain to them, because I was playing center at Chattanooga. We didn't, especially later on, we didn't always ID things, because the left tackle, me, left guard, the center, right guard, and the right tackle had all been playing together for 3 years at that point, or 2 years. It felt like 3 though, the amount of times we practiced together. And so we would oftentimes know who we had. We wouldn't even really have to communicate that much to the line. We would, but we wouldn't ID the mic and then make the calls. I know that probably doesn't sound very good, but that's just the truth. And so I just got very used to running this technique. I would watch the defensive end. If he went, I climbed to the backer. If he came to me, I took him over. And if I had a shade, or if I had a G, I'd give the center a little bit of a help on the backside, but I'd still have my eyes play side. It's just we ran it over and over, and we ran it in practice more so than anything, because we knew we'd be running that in the game.
Right, and that's again, that ties back to the last question I asked you. That some of the challenges of being in a new environment and a new system, you necessarily don't have that chemistry with your teammates you had, and that's the whole purpose of the Senior Bowl, to see how you can do in a new environment with people who may be part of your teammates within another NFL team. That's something you learn as you get to the Senior Bowl, and that's something you take, you put that into your training regimen. Like, you write it down, you note it. You're like, okay, I have to make sure I keep an open line of communication with the rest of my offensive line, because the biggest importance is communication up front. That's how you ID your mic. That's how you let your quarterback know. You also let your running back know by whatever hand signals you guys get. I could never figure out the hand signals offensive linemen and quarterbacks do on the field, and that's just me. I'm being honest over here, but you learn that through the Senior Bowl, and you're like, okay, this is what the NFL may be. So in college, it can be either in practice or maybe at the Senior Bowl or another division opponent. Who's the toughest player you went up against
in college?
Yeah, in college.
I think I was actually pretty lucky to go against a couple of quality players at Chattanooga. Whenever I was a sophomore, we played against South Carolina, and they had Javon Kinlaw. And then whenever we played Kentucky, their entire defensive line was really good. They had McCall, Pascal, and I actually had a couple of scouts during fall camp of this past season tell me, like a month and a half before we played Kentucky, that Kentucky had a good defensive line. And they told me, if you do well in that game, then it says a lot about you. And if you don't do well, it's pretty straightforward. It's like, this is going to be a measure of you. So if you play well, good things are going to happen. If you don't play well, and people probably ain't going to, pay much attention to you. And I kind of had, not from scouts, but from coaches, similar talks about the South Carolina game. During the Western Kentucky game, we played he actually played in the Senior Bowl and went to the Combine. He was my roommate at the Senior Bowl, actually. Malone from Western Kentucky.
Yeah.
Played against him too.
Of course, and you really get better by go up against, competition, people who know your weakness, because as they say, iron sharpens iron, brother sharpens brother, well, whatever you want to say. So, that's really good that, you're able to have they essentially came up to you and told you, this is your weakness, this is what you need to work upon. Like, how did you handle that type of feedback from them?
Whatever they would tell me, I would just work on it. Simply put, it's now I guess I don't really know how meeting rooms at the NFL level operate, but I would assume that someone who couldn't handle constructive criticism probably wouldn't do well. So if they tell me I'm messing up on something, or if they tell me I'm doing wrong on something, then I just try to watch the film, see where it is that they say I'm doing that, and then try to apply that whenever I'm in practice the next day.
You're a tape junkie, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
I am a bit too, and I actually had somebody, a good friend of mine, Matt Alkire. He owns Jetrolite. He asked me to ask you. He's like, Cole, I'm trying to get some film from you. Can you please provide it to me?
He's trying to get my film.
Yeah, Matt's trying to get your film from you. It's just a little bit of a joke from him. But yeah, man, there's a lot of people out there rooting for you and that like you as well. So what NFL player do you model your game after?
I like watching. I've kind of said this a time or two before. I like watching Jason Kelce, and I guess it's just because I feel like I've heard that I'm a center recently, more and more, or that I will be a center. I was about to say on the flip side of that, I also like watching Quentin Nelson. And I know they're kind of different players because he's massive, and Kelce's like famously 285 and still plays really, really well. But I guess I wouldn't say that I model my game after anyone. I just enjoy watching, just if you can learn something, you can, but if not, then just enjoy watching it. That's kind of why it's theirs for people to watch and be fans. But I wouldn't necessarily say I watch somebody and ever say in my head, I want to be like him,
Cole Strange, one of one.
Exactly. I want people to look at me and say, I want to be like him.
I want to be like Cole Strange. Like, Cole, I want to be you. I want to be like Cole Strange from Chattanooga. Look, you're on the Miami Dolphins podcast. All right. Have you had any potential meetings with the Dolphins coaching staff?
Actually, during the combine, I had an unofficial meeting with them. Or not unofficial, informal. So the formal meetings were whenever you had the entire coaching staff, and the entire coaching staff would meet you, and you'd go into a meeting room and talk with them for about 20 minutes. And the informal ones was basically a scout would kind of grab you from this general area that we were all kind of hanging out at, and they would pull you over and talk to you for a second. Or in some situations, they would have a coach. And with the Dolphins, I did have an informal meeting with them. Off the top of my head, I can't remember the name of the fellow that I worked with, but I feel very, very confident that all of my meetings, formal and informal, went really well. And not just in a sense that, I like them because I like anyone who's, but that I felt like it was a good connection, that they thought I knew what I was talking about, and that, the meeting went well. They liked me as well.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear. So, a little bit about the Dolphins. They have a brand new coaching staff, brand new offensive line. Their offensive line coach is the former Boston College offensive line coach, Matt Applebaum. And they're looking to run the same type of scheme San Francisco does, that wide zone running game concept. Do you have experience with wide zone, and what do you know about it?
Yeah, actually, the Bronco play I was telling you about earlier, that was wide zone. Whenever our coaches first installed that, they kind of told us, this is what we're going to run, and they drew it up, explained it to us. Whenever we ran it in practice the first couple times back in 2019, we couldn't block it for anything, and we were still getting like 4 or 5 yards of play.
Wow.
They would show us on film, and they would say, you're blocking it horribly, and we're still getting yards. Imagine whenever we start playing, blocking well. And when we started blocking well, we became a run-first team. That's how it was.
And that's what the Dolphins are trying to do. They're trying to become a run first team to
Mm-hmm.
help quarterback Tua Tagovailoa, who, if you are drafted by the Miami Dolphins, who I hope you are, you're going to be protecting Tua
Yeah,
Tagovailoa.
I would
So,
love it.
what do you know about Tua Tagovailoa? Do you know a little bit about him?
To be honest, not a whole bunch. I mean, the generic information I think everybody knows about him. He went to Alabama.
Yep.
He played really, really well there. Um, I know he's played well at Miami,
Yep.
or at least fairly well. I haven't really kept up very, very closely with any team, especially during the season. I feel like I don't really get too much time to watch,
Yeah.
but I know
Yeah.
he's played
Because
well.
you're hyper focused on your team, your season, and that's what you should be doing as well. So, this is something I want to end with, and it's funny because I just did this yesterday. So I can eat 30 chicken wings in one sitting. How many can you?
I actually haven't done this little test in a
Oh
long
man.
time, but whenever I was a freshman in college, and I'd come back home to Knoxville, and there's this wing place. It's no longer there, which is a shame because it has the best wings I've ever been to. And it took me a hot minute, but I ate 60 wings.
With fries?
There was a side of fries, but it was, it wasn't like endless wings where they were continuously bringing out fries. It was just a little side of fries.
Ah.
And to be
So
fair, I was drinking water with it. So if you were drinking beer, if you were drinking Dr. Pepper or whatever, it would fill you up quicker. So I'll
right.
concede that.
Right, yeah, I only drink water with my wings as well. But favorite flavor of wing? You gotta tell me that.
See, that's the tough part because the place, it's actually kind of a pain in the ass because their wings were so good and they're no longer around, or at least
Oh,
their Farragut location did, and that's the town that I live in. And the wings there, they had this flavor called ranchelada, which was it was it wasn't a wet rub like a barbecue. Whenever you get your hands on it and you bring them back and they're like full covered in barbecue. It was in between that and a dry rub, but they baked them, and then it was they had ranch like seasoning, and I would eat it sometimes with ranch, sometimes with blue cheese. I like both. I know some people are like terrified of blue cheese, but I like both. And oh my gosh, it was
oh my,
phenomenal. Yeah,
you're making my mouth water right
I
here,
know,
man.
man.
You're making my mouth water.
it's
Of
it's
course,
morning time, and I'm fiending for some wings.
yeah, man. I'm feeling for some wings as well. My favorite. And people find this weird, but I fry up my chicken wings and I basically baste them in pickled carrots and apples. So I baste them in there, and then I bake it. Then I make uh, sriracha mayo sauce onto the
Yeah.
side and I dip it. Yeah,
Okay.
I like my wings a little bit spicy and tangy. Like it is good, man.
So
It
you
is
make your
good.
own. I've never done that before.
Yeah, I tend to make my own wings. I'm a foodie. I like to make my own things. It's one of my hobbies.
Yeah.
But like outside of football, what do you like to do to like unwind, or what are some of your hobbies?
Um, you know, I, I like. I know maybe it sounds cliche, but a lot of the times, especially whenever I'm back in town with my brother, we're like get involved in some sort of show on Netflix or something.
Uh huh.
So I'm a big movie and TV show guy. Um, I like reading a lot too. It's something I've kind of gotten more into lately. Um, but I enjoy reading. Um, it's kind of something I want to get more into that I haven't been able to is fishing. I never really grew up doing a whole bunch of that. My dad did not have the patience for all that, and he worked for a living. He's a landscaper, so I think whenever it came Saturday, the last thing he wanted to do was go out early in the morning and hang out in the woods whenever he'd been doing that all week. Um, but it's kind of something I've wanted to get more into. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, if you're ever down here in Miami, which I hope you are,
yeah,
hope you are,
hopefully,
they've got beautiful waters. They've got water all over the coast of the peninsula, especially, south of Miami. You go to Miami Beach, you can fish on the pier, go to
yeah.
any of the
I
piers and
love deep sea
fish.
fishing. I've gone a
You
couple
like deep
times
sea?
whenever I was younger. We went a couple times, and I loved that.
Oh man,
That
that's
was
that's dope. A good fishing spots is actually on the west coast of Florida near Naples side, where they have a little bit of pink sand beaches as well. It's more so low key, laid back, not a lot of people. So I think it might enjoy that.
yeah. Okay, awesome. Well, if I'm down there, then I'll try to find all the spots I can.
Of course, Cole. So, Cole, where can the rest of our listeners find you at, basically?
Oh, you mean like social media and whatnot?
Yeah.
What is my Twitter? I think it's Cole Strange 2. Someone already took Cole Strange 1. Damn
Oh,
it.
dang.
Yeah.
Cole Strange, 2 of 2.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Of course. Well, Cole, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day. I really
Thank
appreciate
you.
you interviewing us here, especially here at the Five Reasons Sports Network. And we wish you the best of luck in your NFL draft journey.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.
Of course, you have a good one. And thank you guys for watching the debut episode of the Scout and Combine on the Five Reasons Sports Network. You guys have a great rest of your day.